Okay, I'm good. Everyone, as Charlotte mentioned, my name is Eric Hahn. I'm the Global Head of Trust and Safety at Genpact. Charlotte noted we're once again a visionary sponsor this year, and we're very proud of that. Now, before I jump in and talk about It Takes a Village, and Charlotte, we always have a mind meld. We always want to talk about the same things, which are stories. But let me get some fine print. Let me get some fine print out of the way. Who are we? I think most of you know of us as the vendor that brings Brixton the dog each year to TrustCon. Just to confirm, he is here again today. So if you do want to meet him, come by the booth, come talk to us and meet Brixton. But to many of our partners, and many of you are sitting here today, you know us as much more than that. We're your resident trust and safety neighbor, helping you scale your operations, think about those hard policies, ask those difficult questions. Look, I'm not going to talk about what we do. You see all that stuff there. We have a booth here. Come talk to us. Come talk to me, my colleagues that are much smarter than me. Ask Brixton of what he thinks about the latest hate speech policy should be. He'll tell you all about that. So I want to spend time that I think is much more valuable, and I think, again, to Charlotte's point, I want to talk about stories. The people in this room, I want to talk about us. But first, let's recap. It's been a tough year. I think in my capacity, working with many of you, the silver lining, not silver lining, but the thread that goes along with all those conversations is like, it really sucks right now. Let's talk about why. For us, while the threats, tactics, techniques, patterns seem familiar, they keep growing at a rapid rate. New hate groups, new elections, new forms of financial exploitation, and the omnipresent specter of AI on top of that. Our superiors, sometimes external factors, sometimes are so befuddled and fatigued by the complexity of our work that sometimes they think that maybe even the abuse that we're trying to prevent is not even a real problem. Despite our victories, despite our continuous advocacy, it sometimes feels that we're a little bit misaligned. It's one step forward, 6 steps back, almost as if we're living in 2 separate realities. And we've certainly felt the consequences of this year. I think Charlotte spoke a lot of this year of highlighting budget cuts, efficiency gains, restructuring, reprioritization. At Genpact, certainly my team has worked with many of you to go through a similar set of questions. How can we scale for 2x while our budget gets cut? How do we prioritize efficiency and quality while also not sacrificing wellness? And of course, how do we use AI to automate our problems away while also staying true to our guardrails? All in all, and as an industry, it seems like we're being asked to do more but with less, to keep our presence of mind and courage in distress without feeling overwhelmed or isolated. But despite all of this, I don't think this is our fate. I don't think we're going to be Kendall Roy drunk in a pool, passed out, though being in a pool right now does sound nice. Instead, my tinge of cautious optimism comes from the very simple fact, and again, as Charlotte said, we're all still here. Every day, it feels like I meet someone new, work with a different team, get posed a new question that ossifies my belief in this field that we're going to get through it. Just yesterday, my wife was dropping me off to the airport after being delayed 5 hours, because you know why. And she asked me, what's the vibe like here? Why do I always get so excited coming here? And I told her, TrustCon is like walking into a room every year, as James Murphy said, to better looking people with better ideas, with more talent, and are actually really, really nice. And that's who we are. That's the community. When we're in distress, we don't rise to our potential. We fall to our training, and we fall to each other. So I wanted to do this thing, send out a questionnaire to a lot of the partners, people we work with, and ask them questions around what inspires you. Who are the teammates that you work with? When did you get a helping hand? When did you get a new perspective? Tell us all about that. And based on the responses, we got a lot of great answers that ossifies and emphasizes what we all know is to be true. It's the people. There are a couple of themes that hit on this, a surprisingly large amount of anecdotes about food, which is surprising, but actually not that surprising. But ultimately, what we found in your answers is examples of people wanting to do good things because they're worthwhile, emphasizing our inclination that we want to help each other. Whether it was a technical issue or an escalation that particularly was challenging your policies, nobody does this alone. So with this feedback, we identified individuals in this room, I think, I haven't seen all of you yet, that represent the broad spectrum of our field so that we can broadcast their words of wisdom, talk about their accomplishments, and embarrassing them by showering them with praise. So with that, we'd like to introduce Genpact's sponsored inaugural TrustCon yearbook, featuring the class of 2024, and in a time-honored tradition of yearbooks, present their unique attributes in the form of superlatives. So first up, and I see her right there, most likely to remind you to stay hydrated. We have Catherine Weems. She's currently an independent consultant, but she has 24 years in leadership, mentorship, and based on personal experience, throwing a mean happy hour. When asked everybody what makes a strong leader, you cited someone that could write a good OKR, someone that could provide clear and concise feedback, but most importantly, someone to remind you that your career is long and wide, both horizontal and vertical. Catherine is a rare breed of leader. She's that person that's like a duck above water, but paddling furiously underneath. She's the first people to tell her people to say, treat each day like a water off a duck's back, and the first person to tell me that I'm using too many duck metaphors. In response to this public embarrassment, we asked Catherine what words of wisdom that she wants to impart on everybody, and in typical Catherine fashion, she said, it's just a fucking website. I think that helps Catherine and the many people that she works with get some context and perspective, that while what we do is significant and important, understanding your values and your true sense of self is priority number one. Remember that and everything else will follow. So thanks, Catherine. Next up, and most likely to have read that academic paper in virality, you said you read but really didn't. We have Jarrell Peterson, currently the head of content policy at Spotify with over 9 years of distilling complex principles into policies. One of my favorite things about coming to TrustCon is sitting down with all of you and figuring out where did you come from? What professional life did you have before this? Talk to your neighbor and you're gonna see a lot of the similar themes that we talk about, protection and care in those qualities. And Jarrell comes from that perspective, coming from social work. Taking those qualities of protection, care, curiosity, and empathy and leading it into creating policies for millions of people to use. How do you write fair and equitable policies for folks? How can you break down sometimes academic or esoteric concepts into distilled policies for the public? How do you write them pithy enough so when your CEO calls you at 3 a.m. in the morning and asks you the question, so what really is misinformation? You're not at a loss for words. His unique background is not only used for bringing his best self at work for people around him, his community. In his own words, community is an active word. It's not just people with shared interests or values existing together. It's also the collaboration and reciprocity among those people in service of some common good. So thanks, Jarrell. Next up, most likely to help your request out of a backlog, we have Juliet Shen. She's currently at the Trust and Safety Tooling Consortium. Juliet has about 8 years of being the embodiment of safety by design. I think we all have stories, Charlotte, as you mentioned, when we did at Photo DNA, where we were waiting for company hack weeks so we could beg, barter, and steal our favorite PM's time and just say, can you please just fix this bug in my moderation tool that has existed for 6 months? Similarly, though, we also have anecdotes about the time when that PM sat down with us, understood our priorities, understood how to fix it, and actually taught us how to file something in Jira. By prioritizing the safety of the platform, prioritizing the sanity of the collective trust and safety team. Many of you sang Juliet's praises, and it speaks to the work that she's doing, and in her own words, to me, community represents hope and support, something that can exist when we all build it together. Nobody wins unless everybody wins. So, Juliet, thank you very much. And most likely to teach you the difference between complement and complement, we have Jamie Favaza. She's currently the global head of safety comms at TikTok with over 10 years of ensuring the public understands what we do. When I say community, I really mean community. We oftentimes talk about the folks on the ground, policy, legal policy, et cetera, but we also have what are traditionally seen as peripheral teams, but in reality are integral to the success of our solutions. Strategy is only as good as its ability to be understood. And for those of you who worked with Jamie, you understand that your resident comm stakeholder can be your voice of reason. In an industry where there's a lot of talk but not a lot of listening, individuals like Jamie have the challenge to clearly disseminate the passion, the rationale, the care that's baked into the decisions we make. How do we explain this to the public? What if the decision contradicts our values? How do we reconcile this? All of these are questions not only that strengthen our ability to defend ourselves in the public, but can also break us out of the tunnel vision that we tend to fall into. In Jamie's own words, stay curious. Growth in any form doesn't come without curiosity, a desire to learn and try new things. All right, last one, most likely to come up on stage and have a fireside chat with me. We have Joel Silk, who's the Senior Director of Operations of Roblox with 20 years of operationalizing the impossible. Joel was kind enough to come on up on stage, come on stage and have a discussion with me, so give him a round of applause. Hi.
Hello.
Let's pretend we didn't talk about this earlier.
Sure.
Nice to see you. So Joel was kind enough, as I said, to sit down with me and have a conversation, to just hear straight from the horse's mouth, and to also prevent me from vamping for another 10 minutes, and so I could get a sip of water. Before we jump in, obviously you've heard us talk about community stories, et cetera. We'd love to hear about your stories, but why don't you tell us who you are, where you come from, and what brought you to Trust and Safety?
First, I have to say, this is my favorite part about meeting other trust and safety folks, is the beauty of the origin story. Nobody goes to school, nobody grows up and say, I want to be a trust and safety professional, but here we are, right? 1,300 of us in this room. And so I love, please, if you do meet me, tell me your origin story. How did you get here? Here's mine. I spent 20 years as an Air Force intelligence officer, and I spent the last half of my military career focusing on, I don't like this term, but operating in and around cyberspace and finding bad people online who don't want to be found. Turns out, super transferable skill set to trust and safety. So when I retired from the military, I thought for sure I was going to be a cybersecurity expert. That was my jam. I was going to do that. And then I met some trust and safety folks, and it spoke to my mission value set and my passion about protecting people. And so it's my new home, and I love it, and I will do this for the rest of my working career.
It's a big commitment.
As long as they'll have me, right?
Yeah. As mentioned earlier, right, we all have those interesting stories and backgrounds, so encourage everyone to talk to your neighbor. Joel, as we talked about community, inspiration, creativity, you leading teams both within Trust and Safety and in the Air Force. Love to hear about any achievements, personal milestones, inspirational moments that you or your team have gone through, whether it's at Roblox now or previously.
Clarifying question, does survival count as an achievement? Because the last 5 years at Roblox has been a crazy, crazy ride. I think when we I started at Roblox December of 2019, and you guys remember what happened in the spring of 2020. We started in a very scrappy, very small moderation team. I was actually the first senior director of moderation at Roblox. We had some of my predecessor had both customer support and moderation. I don't know how she survived. She's amazing. But building that out, and then of course COVID happened. We, like many other online platforms, scaled exponentially, and we were figuring things out as we went. And then we had Gen AI come online and integrating all of that, and it just, I think my greatest achievement so far has just been surviving and like holding my team and our platform together and doing it in upholding some of the highest safety standards in the industry, and I'm really proud of what we do at Roblox. I think I like to tell people making safe a UGC platform, very, very difficult to do. Making safe a platform with young users, very, very difficult to do. Nobody's been crazy enough so far to do the same, do them both at the same time, till Roblox. And so just, I think survival has been it.
Survival, key word. I think we were just talking about this of COVID. I don't mean to traumatize everyone again, but I remember sitting in a meeting and then having a 30-minute conversation around does anyone have an in on PPE that we could send to our moderators? I was like, I think we should send those to the hospitals first.
Yeah.
But it's fine. You never, speaking of that, best laid plans, right? COVID's a really good example of that. You try to get it from point A to point Z, and then obviously there's detours or forks in the road. So within that, any examples in which you ran into that, had to say, yes, we want to get over here, but all of a sudden you have to start pivoting to something else?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that we had was our product team came to us and they said, hey, we want to launch voice chat on Roblox. And they picked me up off the floor and sat me back down in the chair, and I was sweating, it's fine. And so it was really interesting. We went through this this whole trust and safety lifecycle in a very, very short period of time. Hey, new product, new feature, how are we going to keep this safe? We, like many other platforms, we threw people at it, and that worked for a little while. But what we found was it takes a long time for our humans to go listen to a voice chat, figure out what's happening, provide a response, et cetera, and then you do this at scale. It takes forever. And so what we found was the time between policy infraction to consequence applied was sometimes days, not minutes. And we said, look, this is A, financially not tenable, and B, and we're not really doing a service to our community, we need to do this faster. So somebody had a great idea of, and I'm only half joking, of locking some engineers in a room and saying, don't come out until you figure out how to do this at scale. And I'm very happy to say that they did. We fed them, like they were fine, but they came out and they said, we have now the ability to do voice moderation at scale in real time on the voice print itself. So a lot of systems take the voice, do speech to text, run through the text filter, and we did start this way, run it through a text filter, right, and then come back. We can now do this on the voice print itself. What used to take 48 to 72 hours to provide a consequence for a user that violated our policies and our practices, our standards, now happens within single-digit minutes. And I'm really excited to say that the results of this, where we saw a 53% reduction in reports, abuse reports per daily active user, which we're really excited about. And the precursor to this was a 15% reduction in recidivism. I'm sorry, I am supposed to talk about this in a positive light. So we had a 15% increase in reform, but it's really exciting. And this capability, this technology, we patented it, and then we immediately went out and open sourced it. So it is available for everyone. We're very excited about it.
That's a quick shout to the panel I'm looking forward to, I think, around open sourcing tooling. So big shout out to that. And speaking of which, right, like when you get asked to, hey, we need a voice feature, we're going to launch in 6 weeks, et cetera, is there anything else that you're looking forward to, or not, well, speaking positively, looking forward to in the emerging technology space, future culture, things that are popping up to you? Obviously, AI has talked a lot about. Anything you're excited about or keeping a keen and watchful eye on?
Yeah, there are two things. One, AI, because it's been like 10 minutes since somebody mentioned AI. It's going to happen all week. Very excited about not just using AI to find those 1 million images on the platform, or finding the nuanced violation in a voice chat or a text chat. Like identifying the violations is really helpful and exciting. But what I'm really excited about is using Gen AI in our outreach back to our community. So for example, we're working on systems to provide bespoke, tailored feedback to our users about why they were moderated and how to prevent that in the future, which we couldn't do at scale with humans. So I'm really excited about that. The second one, the trend that I'm really excited about, is the cross-platform collaboration and the information sharing. We've seen hints of this in the past. This is one of those things that I took from our cybersecurity world, the InfoSec space. They have figured out how to do this without divulging PII or proprietary company information. We need to learn from the cybersecurity world and do more about cross-platform information sharing, shared analysis, shared understanding of what's happening. We see a lot of platform hopping. That's the only way we're going to tackle that is together.
Awesome. Great. I think we have one minute left, so I wanted to get to this question. Forgive me, it's probably hard-hitting. You're probably going to hear this question all the time, and feel free to skip it. What's your perfect Sunday?
Well, assuming that it's not football season, the Niners are not playing, my perfect Sunday is my kids just got into biking and going out on a bike trail with them and seeing their little faces and their little pedals. It's awesome. My kids are 6 and 8, and they're just now figuring out like how to stay in their lane, which is awesome. So that's, I think, my perfect Sunday. Maybe a little barbecue brisket on the grill. That's my perfect Sunday.
So not being on call.
No incidences. No, like, yes.
Awesome. Well, please give a round of applause for Joel. Brave enough to talk to us today, and that's my time. Thank you, everybody. Be safe and do good work.